Hi, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. And here we are again. I have a couple of questions here. One is from Laurie Delaplante here in Ottawa. And she says, we often hear of yogis or sages who describe a state of being where they can maintain an internal state of calmness, peace, regardless of external events or stressors. I understand that we can't use our personal will to make such a shift in consciousness happen. However, I'm wondering, what can we do to help increase our receptivity and readiness for a higher state to manifest through us in this way? Well, you can meditate and you can attempt to construct a system inside yourself that is receptive to perceiving and watching how you function. Sounds a little bit strange in that we've been talking about this for quite a while, but it is very difficult to understand why that might be important. Part of the reasoning is that in doing so, you can begin to cultivate an inner perception that doesn't have anything to do with assessing other people, engaging with other people and coming up with an assessment of how they are inside and why they are that way inside, because that's personality orientation. And that really is one of the boundaries that we are set up with here on this planet. We love to have control over what we see and what we don't see. And this is kind of normal in our world. But you're talking about sages and yogis who reach a point where that energy can come in and calm down their personality. They're open to that. You often see a yogi or a sage, and they're sitting around, and this is also misunderstood by most of us, especially in India and other places. They're sitting around doing absolutely nothing, or so it appears to be. They're sitting around, but they're not doing anything that relates to the personality, but they're doing something that relates to the inner world. They're perceiving inside themselves that attainable, let's say, I won't say attainable relative to the personality because of the questions that you set up, but attainable by the influence of a higher state. It's often been said that by many, many people that you can attain, like a goal, a state of emptiness, a state of silence, a state of peace. And if you do that and you consider it to be something that you've attained, then that is not the state attested to by the sages or the, let's say, individual yogis that may have attained it. You see, it's not about the verbiage that you express. It's not about being able, in accordance with the personality that believes that she or he is able. It hasn't anything to do with that at all. It has everything to do with being in a position to allow yourself to practice looking inside, beyond the personality's natural constructed system that is the looker who says they're the looker. It's very difficult to explain. Problem's mine. If I'm not getting it across, then it's not because you're not listening in the right way. I'm not speaking the words in a perfect way. So there is a reflex inside of us all to maintain virtually exactly how we have been before. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just, it's there in everybody. You can not be aware of it. That's true. But you can also be aware of it. So let's say, for example, you begin to notice your engagement with how you function in this world. All right, that's one thing. The pause that you create to watch that must include a willingness not to assess it, but to recognize that this is how a human being functions. Every human being functions. Unfortunately, I hate to say these words because it sounds so weird, in a very similar way relative to the personalizations that have been constructed within them so that they could basically survive in our world. It is rare to have a person who will allow themselves to see how they function. The seeing is the beginning. You watch and see. And notice if you have a reaction to what you're seeing. Here's a reaction. A reaction may be negative, may beat yourself up for having acted out in a certain way. It can happen to all of us. Or it may be elevative. Probably the wrong word, if that is a word. But you elevate yourself because you can see yourself. That is a construction of the personality. What these sages are talking about is a construction of a quiet within that congested area called the personality. Its congestion is made up of how it has learned how to be functional in our world with others and themselves. That is the congestion. The silence of that, or the quiet that can occur within that, is not beating up those things because they're bad. It's about saying, so something like, so this is how we are. The part of that I play in that we is like this. Is like that. Now, you don't talk that out. You engage with that personally. You recognize you're watching. You watch as if you're watching in silence. You're watching for recognition, not negation, not to place yourself in a position of being a great watcher. That's not helping. That's part of the personality construction. Personality is very tricky, and it's meant to be tricky so it can survive. What these sages are talking about is where the mind becomes absolutely silent. This is a dilemma. The mind is silent, and at any moment it can perceive, because of its quiet, inside itself. There's a period of time where the individual is getting used to that. Whether they ever get used to it hasn't got anything to do with the will of getting used to it. It has to do with an allowance of the individual to be quiet in spite of its functioning form, its personality, and recognize that its quiet is related to the inner world. Its focus is on the inner world. This is very difficult for us because we live in a world that is, by extension, quite active. And we are considered a little strange if we don't have an opinion about something. And then if we don't elevate with intensity how important that opinion is. And if we don't align with some others or refute some others, we're not really someone that others may want to engage with. We're not entertaining enough. The issue in this is you're talking about sages. These forms recognize this kind of a thing, that everyone on this planet has every human being on this planet has a certain format with slight differences. And that format is consistent. There are those in their early development of a movement that often is called spiritual progress, whatever it may be. Some are not even interested in doing this. They may have had an opportunity to do this before, and for some personalized reason, they are now may be involved with another frequency that is brand new for them. So they're basically starting to try and bring in past life experiences to try and understand this, but they don't have any recall. So, or they may have recall, but they can't do they're not doing very well with this new frequency. They're learning. See, you continue to learn. So other people who have no idea about that may call them unable to do this, unable to do that. Can't be really spiritual. It's not what a sage calls spiritual. The ability to interact as if you are a form for the purpose of a higher state. Utilizing a personality form for the purpose of, let's say, just survival in these planes the best you can. The personality sometimes is not capable in certain areas because of certain, let's say, frequencies that are still being developed. Or the individual, from a point of a sage now, is looking at such and such another individual as, they have been able to do this, they've been able to do that. Their heart center is starting to come on in a different place relative to a throat center. The brow is starting to function differently. It will function and bring life to the solar plexus root and gonad center in a different way than it was before. And now it will be the personality that was cultivated before will have to be able to make adaptations. And it will appear like they are changing somewhat. And that old personality state will not like to do any changing, but it can mimic the change. Wow, I'll act like. All I have to do is say these words, and that will make some sense to others. And Now, that would be validating for me. This is normal in our personality world, but a sage will know that. It won't interfere because the individual structure is in a process or a movement towards learning how to perceive what it is doing in that moment, and that will be helpful in his or her development. And this is a very positive way of engaging. Yet, if there is a slight little gap in there where that individual could be helped with that new frequency, transmission can occur into that gap from that sage. Not from the sage per se, because her or his focus will be on the energy that flows in and goes to that place. They will not take credit for that because it is the energy that does it, not them. If they take credit, then the personalization starts getting stronger again. Sage does not want that. It is very different to be in the mind state, emotional state of that stage. But you said total peacefulness. Yeah, no. Well, that is a sage at a very different level than what is normal here on these planes. That peacefulness, calmness, can only be calm and peaceful if it is directed by a higher state, not from a personality. If you haven't got anything going on, no difficulties at all, personality can kind of gauge a kind of relative peacefulness and calm. That's a good thing. Not a bad thing. It helps the individual to feel comforted by itself. And you'll notice in your life, you'll do various things to try and comfort yourself. Some people love cooking, they'll cook. Some people like walking, they'll walk. Oh, God, I love this. Oh, beautiful out here, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but they're cultivating the need to call it beautiful. Sage would say, the glow of that tree, they wouldn't speak it out, the glow of that tree, say within herself or himself, is aligning with the glow of me. That's not very exciting, especially if you're a conversationalist and you want some feedback. Why would they? The sage would not want to have that feedback given. Their focus is on energy. So a good question would be, is a sage ever bored with focusing on energy? Because our personality states we like to consider ourselves not very bored when we're really focused on being expressive and engaging and fundamentally pleased with ourselves. That's us. That's what we do from time to time. And that's okay. We're talking about a sage here. A sage may not find that as tantalizing, but the glow of an engagement with a tree or another person reaching out to them energetically and touching them with a stillness or a love or a mix of energy that relates directly to a blending inside that brings a kind of joy. I said a kind of joy, hardly defined by how we look at joy, I think, but akin to it. And then suddenly there's an expression of deep inner peace that no one ever wants to let go of, because it broadens out your relationship with those higher states. You see, our best shot at this often is what we do. Our assessment of what it must be like to be in that situation. Therefore, we relate to how and when we may have been quiet and peaceful inside, and bring that to bear, and therefore understand that it must be something like that. It is, but it isn't. It's related to a higher state within us, rather than a personalized version of what that must be. I see no reason with it any negativity towards attempting to perceive what that might be. Your personality can come up with stuff. And I think the leaning towards wanting to have that happen is a very positive thing. You're reaching sincerely out, because you can't trick that higher state. But it, remember, is constantly in us, engaging in every wisp of a thought, wisp of an emotional assessment, a way of thinking that you have figured stuff out. And it influences that, makes it bigger, so you can broaden your awareness into a space where you might consider what you've come up with not as valuable, but as an option that might be of some value towards the next option that might make some better sense at another time or in the next second. It's how we attempt to make some sense of things. I know I've asked people to attempt to try and perceive energy internally and at the same time engage with their life. This is not the easiest thing in the world to do. Sages are doing this particular thing all the time, and that's the only thing they have any interest in. They don't have any interest in being any version of prophetic. They don't have any interest in knowing how another person is. They don't have any interest in being clairvoyant, mind reading, bending spoons, knowing what number is going to come up and if you roll a dice. They don't have any interest in that stuff. That's what we have interest in. We have interest in extending our capacities, our five senses, making them beyond others, because it's the nature of how we get relative attention, and it makes us feel decent and feel good. Their focus would be constantly directed internally. Now, they would have an interest in seeing how your throat center is, if they can help, how your heart center has been going, how your crown center has been touched by at least some of the base centers, especially the root, gonad, solar plexus, and how that has affected the upper ones. Are you able to handle a little bit of help in a place where you're very vulnerable, even if you don't know you're vulnerable? And they would not try to do something. They would interact with that higher state in their curiosity, in their inquiry, and then release themselves from the questioning, and leave themselves open for an engagement with a higher state to operate through them for a very particular purpose relative to only the awareness of the higher state. Now, that's a sage of a quite high level. There are sages in motion. There are sages that can transmit within a second any and every center that they have open, and they can have all of them open. Every one, not only 5, but every one. They can help an individual if they are willing to put their attention on that inner world and grow through the structure of our base worlds here. Not bad worlds, base worlds, meaning our engagement with our physical orientation, our emotions, our mental facility, our engagement with all kinds of things, including competition, including jumping out with the best assessment possible about what's going on in our world. All of these things are us. Sage knows one thing, knows that she or he, no matter what happens in the world, will always be at the movement and the engagement of that higher state. This is very difficult for us to understand this. It's not so difficult for us to talk about it, but very difficult for us to understand that to be of that nature is to allow our engagement with us within ourselves, to know us as we are, with all our foibles, and know that a sage would know them, but not find them extremely important. I should have said foibles and our great attributes, whatever they may be, would not be that interested, but would be very interested in your willingness to become sage-like, even in the smallest little amount, so that you could begin your journey inwardly as important as your outward one. This is, once again, very, very difficult to consider uh, a viable way of engaging sage-like. No one would want to leave behind the images that we have constructed for the purpose to allow a higher state to operate through us and still go about our lives as normally as we can remain normal without mentioning anything. We're fortunate enough to attempt to begin to do such a thing. But what will interfere with this is our natural inclination to want to be in charge, not only of ourselves, but all of the interactive world around us, according to how our training has brought us to this moment. And at the same time, recognizing that we are still growing. And if you are still growing, then you are still changing. One of the most wonderful things about the human structure, I think, if it wishes to do so, there can be much adaptation going on within itself. But at the same time, the defense of the personalization that it's accumulated is tremendously strong. Because within that defensive structure lies the capacity to maintain the images that the individual about themselves that the individual does not even know they have. Gentling down those images is an interesting way. It can help. Being curious about them and wondering about them can slow them down. Pausing and looking inside and watching inside through meditation, through honesty and forgiveness of the self, and recognizing that we replay in a kind of strange way our childhood inclinations. And I don't mean any kind of a negative way, but when you were young, you did things to get the attention of your parental background, whether it be positive or not so positive. You got their attention. And then you've constructed a system to become an adult where you believe that you are the boss. And you maintain that because without it, you feel too awkward and not valuable. Knowing that that may be there and smiling about it a bit, and knowing you have to do that sometimes, but you don't have to do that all the time, is hard for us. A sage will look at that and find it not as interesting because it's already busy engaging with a deeper state, and it wants to know more about the deeper state. It's like becoming a student again inside, not outside. You already have the answers, lots of answers outside. And you can gauge all different kinds of things. Read a lot, watch movies, listen to people, but learning how to be quiet inside all the time when you can. It's not 24 hours. You can't do that. And I know people say they can. But that's the outside world, mimicking the idea of what it would look like if you were a sage. Sages don't have a pattern. They have a disinterest in having a pattern. Because they're busy inside. In a kind of a way, they are learning to engage always with that higher state consciously. It hasn't got anything to do with having acquired the capacity to engage with a higher state. It has to do with letting go and watching that state. And then you begin to learn. The problem with that, of course, is that you will form an additional grid. You'll set up a new set of rules and you'll validate them. And that is the mimicking of the personality. And that's what happens. At the next level, you start to see that is not as helpful. You still use it, not as helpful. You let go of some parts of it. And slowly you begin to understand a little deeper. But at the same time, the personality comes back in there. And you see this all over the world. And this is the nature of growing. It's nothing wrong with that happening. It's the nature of growing. You're learning in increments, slow and easy. While you're engaging with life, one way is, even if it's boring or repetitive, look inside and see how you function. You meet a person, look inside. And if you can perceive those energy levels, look at them. Instead of saying, oh, they're only just have their root center on and their solar plexus and their verbalizations, the throat centers on a bit. And, that's not a very important person. Recognize that those systems are on. And they're on in a way that relates to the personality. And that's where that person is, and they are learning. Because that's where you are, and you're learning. Why would you beat somebody up that's learning, and they don't know they're even learning, but they get hooked on how they think they need to be because they've been trained that way? The same thing is happening to you. I get hooked on me, you get hooked on you. You get hooked on ideas. You get hooked on how so-and-so was, how they should be, and how things should be in the world. The world has been like this for a long time, and it will continue in some way to be similar until the world learns, each individual in the world, 8 billion people right now, but wow, it's going to be 9 billion by, some people think, 2050. That's a lot of billions. But it's the core of how we function. We're attached to that core. And you have aggressiveness in you, let's say. attentiveness in relationship to assumptions made based on what you think you see and come up with what you believe must be. It's the nature of how we've constructed the system so we can survive at the coarser levels. This is the nature of how we are. It doesn't sound very appetizing. We'd much rather have a kind of fiction. Well, this is not a fiction. This is an honest question and an honest reply. We are growing. It's allowed. Sages are still growing. It's allowed. They're growing slightly different than we are because their attention is not necessarily in this world all the time. Sometimes it is. If they haven't eaten for a few days, they might recognize to stay on these planes so they can be helpful. They might need to eat. We will find a way. They'll be taken to a place, engaged with an individual that will be helpful in giving them enough sustenance to survive. It's the nature of things at that level. Our nature of things is to recognize and look around and see how people are compared to you. It's the nature of these coarser levels. And we have beliefs related to these structural ways of thinking. And we find them heartening. But they are not sage ones. They're related to where you are, and where all of us are. And it's the nature of where we are. So, doing the best we possibly can where we are is of great value. So if you're really truly interested in growing, become aware of that energy internally. Here's how to do it. Attempt every day. Practice it. Some days you'll notice it and you'll say, is this all there is? I just noticed this? Well, I noticed this. Now I notice it. Now I know it's already there. No. Engage with it. Take a look at you through it. Don't negate you. Be okay with you. Engage with higher state, verbally, internally, your method. Use prayer. Use talking. You're throwing a line towards a higher state. Use purpose. Some people use books. At some point in your awareness inside of you, you will find some books that will make you shift inside a little bit. And because you're noticing a little bit inside of you, that book will give you a sensation that you might maybe read a few chapters, and then that might be the only thing that you need to do. The same thing might be true of engaging with people. Same thing might be okay with engaging with ideals. It's not because those systems are the only systems that are important. It's because you're learning inside to perceive. And you will close down your perceptions by making up a rule that is right in terms of your personality. And you will stay held in your personality. Nothing to do with the people or engagement that you're involved with. Because that is the nature of what you do to make you feel more comforted. And you do that in the small things as well as the big things. That is not negative. It's just what we do. If you find that, slow it down, calm it down, pull back from it just a little bit. It'll be difficult because you reprogram the way things are with the nurturing that you received when you were a young person. So if their method was, if your teacher's methods were that they were right all the time, you will be right all the time. That you were wrong all the time, you will think you're wrong all the time. Then you will have to support your rightness or wrongness in a manner that comforts you. There are many different ways of doing that. We all are subject to these things all over the world. It has nothing to do with nations or specific individuals. It's everyone is subject to these things. There is a kindness that can be promoted in this, recognizing what's going on. Soften down. Don't be hard on you. Be respectful. And as kind as you can get with recognition. Ask for help for this. Talk to that inside, that flow. Reach out, throw a line out. Give me a hand with this. I don't do well with this one. You got to do it in your voice. I'll have to do it in mine. I would like to think I talked a little bit about this subject, Lori. I hope. And I'm wondering what can we do to help increase our receptivity and readiness? I think I've covered a little bit of that. Please, the other thing I've thought might be helpful if you become aware above your head and behind you and hold that off your body and be aware within you and be respectful in your awareness. And slowly, your mind or your emotions may allow you to focus inside even when you're talking to another person. This is a very important key. And this one, I think I align with the Dalai Lama in this one when he said the only difficulty with many spiritual people is if they're so focused on how important they are. And he's talking about self-importance in relationship, not only to spiritual people. And this is where we need the help the most. And I think we all have a bit of that we could maybe work on ourselves with. I wish everybody well. I think we're going to switch to doing some meditation right now. I think the next question is a little bit long, so I think we'll meditate. I'm not sure if Marlene has a...
Got it.
Do you? Okay. So Marlene's going to set us up here. Good night, everyone.
दिवि शक्त्या युक्तो यदि भवति शक्तः प्रभविति न चेदेहं देहि न खलु कुशलः स्पन्दितुमपि हरिहर गिरिजादिभिरपि रणतुं स्तोतुं कथमकृत पुण्यः प्रभवति अविद्यानाम् अन्तस्तिमिरद्वीपनगरम् जडानां चैतन्यं मकरन्दं श्रुतिझरी दरिद्राणां चिन्तामणि गुणनिका जन्मजलधौ निमग्नानां दंष्ट्रा मुररिपु वराहस्य भवति वदन्य पाणिभ्या अभय वरदो दैवत गणः त्वमेका नैवासि प्रकटित वराभीत्यं विनया भयात्रातुं दातुं खलमपि च वाञ्छा समधिकम् च विशिखा वसन्त सामन्तो मदन मरुदायु धनरथम् तथापेकः सर्वम् इमि गिरिसुते कामपि कृपाम् अपाङ्गायते लब्ध्वा जगदिदं मनम्बू विजयते सुधासिन्धु मध्ये सुरविटपवाटी परिवृते मणिद्वीपे नीकोपवनवती चिन्तामणि गृहे शिवाकारे मञ्चे परमशिव पर्यन्तनिजया भजन्ति त्वां धन्या कतिचन चिदानन्दलहरी मही मूलाधार त्वमपि मणिपुरे उतवहं स्थितं स्वाधिष्ठाने हृदि मरुतमाकाशमुपरि मनोऽपि भ्रूमध्ये सकलमपि भित्त्वा कुलपथम् सहस्रारे पद्मे सह रहसि पत्या विहरसि चतुर्भिः श्रीकण्ठे शिवयुवतिभिः पञ्चभिरपि प्रभिन्नान्ति शम्भो नवभिरपि मूलप्रकृतिभिः चतुश्चत्वारिंशत् वसुदरहराश्रिवदनम् विवेकाभिः सार्धम् तव चरणकोणाम् परिणता त्वदीयं सौन्दर्यं दुहिन गिरिकन्ये तुरयितुम् कवीन्द्राः कल्पन्ते कथमपि विरिञ्चि प्रभृतयः यदा रूपो सुख्यात् अमरनगरा यान्ति मनसा तपोभिः दुष्प्रापाः गिरिषु सायुज्य पदवीम् कवीन्द्राणाम् चेतः कमल वरपादातः रुचिम् भजन्ते हि सन्तः कतिचित् अरुणा मे भवति विरिञ्चि प्रियसा करुणतर शृङ्गार लहरी गभीराभिः वाग्भिः विदधति सतां रञ्जनमणि सवित्रीभिर्वाचाम् शशिमणि क्षीराभङ्गरुचिभिः वशिन्या द्यात् वांसः जननी सञ्चिन्तयति यः सकर्ता काव्यानां भवति महतां रुचिभिः वचोभिः वाक्भिः वदनं कमलां मोद मुखं बिन्दुं कृत्वा उचयुगम् अधस्तस्य तदधो हरार्धं ध्यायेद्योगी हरमहिषी मन्मथ ससत्य संशोधं नयति वनिताम् इत्यखिलः त्रिलोकी मप्यासम् भ्रमयति रविन्दु स्तनयुगा शिव शक्तिः कामः क्षिति रथ रवि शीतकिरणः स्मरो हंसश्चक्रम् तदनु च परामार हरयः हृल्लेखाभिः तिसृभिः अवसानेषु घटिता भजन्ति वर्णास्ते तव जननी गगनं मणिभिः सान्द्रघटितम् किरीटन्ते हैमन् हिमगिरिसुते कीर्तयति नः। समीरे यच्छायाच्च रणशबलम् चन्द्रशतरम् धनुः शौर्यं सीरम् किरीटिनं निबध्नाति धीषणम्। विमलम् आभाति तव द्वितीयं तन्मन्ये मुकुट घटितं चन्द्रशकलम् विपर्यासि न्यासान् उभयम् अपि सम्भूय च मिथः सुधारे पश्यति परिणम् इति राधा हिमकरः भ्रुवो भुग्नि किञ्चित् भुवनम् भयभङ्ग व्यसनिम् त्वदीय नेत्राभ्याम् मधुकर रुचिभ्याम् धृतगुणम् धनुर्मन्ये सव्येतरकर गृहीतम् रतिपतेः प्रकोष्ठे मुष्टौ च स्थगयति निगूढं सूते सह्यम् तव नयनम् अर्कात्मकतया प्रियामा वामन्ते सृजति रजनीम् नायकतया द्वितीयाति दृष्टिः दरदरित इमां भुजरुचिः समाधत्ते सन्ध्याम् दिवसनिशयोः अन्तरचरी विशाला कल्याणी स्फुटरुचि अयोध्या कमलयनी कृपाधारा धारा किमपि मथुरा भोगवती का भवन्ति दृष्टिस्ति बहुनगर विस्तार विजया जीवन्त तत् नाम व्यवहरण योग्या विजयते कवीनां सन्दर्भस्तत्र मकरन्दैक रसिकम् कटाक्ष व्याक्षेप भ्रमर कलह कर्णयुगलम् अमुच्यन्ता दृष्ट्वात्मना रसास्वाद असूया संसर्गात् अलिकलयनम् किञ्चित् तरुणम् शिवे शृङ्गाराद्या तदितरजने उत्सनपरा सरोषा गङ्गायां गिरिशा चरिते विस्मयवती हराह्यो भीता सरसिरुहा सौभाग्य जननी सुखीषु स्मिराधे मयि जननी दृष्टिः सकरुणा गते कर्णाभ्यर्णं भरतम् इव पक्ष्माणि दधति पुरां भेतुः चित्तप्रशमरसः विद्रावणहरे निमीलिते गोत्राधरपति पुरोक्तं सकलिके तवाकर्णा कृष्ण स्वरशरा विरासं कलयतः विभक्त दैवं व्यतिकरित वीराञ्जन दया विभाति त्वन्नेत्रं त्रितयमिदम् ईशान दयिते पुनः स्रष्टुं देवा द्रुहिणा हरिरुद्रा उपरताम् सत्त्वं बिभ्रत्तमम् इति गुणानां त्रयमेव पवित्रीकर्तुं पशुपति पराधीन हृदये दयामित्रे मित्रैः अरुणं धवल श्याम रुचिभिः नदः शोणो गङ्गा तपनः तनयेति ध्रुवमः त्रयाणां तीर्थानाम् उपनयसि संभेद मनः निमेषो ईशाभ्यां हृदयमुदयं याति जगति तवेत्याह सन्तो धरणीधर राजन्य तनये त्वदुन्मेषाणि जातं जगदिदम् अशेषं प्रलयतः परित्रातुं शङ्के परिहृत निमेषास्तव दृशः सरस्वत्या दक्षिणा विधिहरिसपन्ना विहरति रते पातिव्रत्यं शिथिलयति रम्येण वपुषा चिरं जीवन्नेव शपितम् पशुपाशं व्यतिकरम् परानन्दाभिख्यां रसयति रसं त्वद्भजनम् शिव शक्त्या युक्तो यदि भवति शक्तः प्रभवितुम् न चेदेवं देवो न खलु कुशलः स्पन्दितुमपि आराध्या हरिहर विरिञ्चादिभिरपि प्रणतुं स्तोतुं कथमकृत पुण्यः प्रभवति अविद्यानाम् अन्तस्तिमिरद्वीपनगरी जडानां चैतन्यं स्तबकं मकरन्दं श्रुतिझरी दरिद्राणां चिन्तामणि गुणनिका जन्मजलधौ निमग्नानां दंष्ट्रा मुररिपु वराहस्य भवति त्वदन्य अभय वरदो दैवत गणः त्वमेका नैवासि प्रकटित वराभीत्यं विनया भयात्रातुं दातुं हरमपि च वाञ्छा समधिकम् धरणी लोकानां तव हि चरणं वेवनिपुः धनुः पुष्पं मौर्विमधुकर मयि पञ्च विशिखाः वसन्त सामन्तो मदन मरुदायु धनरथम् तथापेतः सर्वं
Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding on your own. Good night, everybody.